Welcome to another episode of the Soothing Semantics podcast. I am your host, Rafi Pinsky. Subscribe, of course, smash the like button, leave those comments for your South Florida real estate needs, especially after Mr. Mamdani has just won the election. We're going to get into that for definitely part of the episode because this is fresh news. So I imagine there's going to be some New Yorkers making Aliyah. Hopefully, there's going to be New Yorkers moving to South Florida. There's this seeming trend of events now, turn of events now. So happy to help. This week we have Joseph Cohen, somebody who I've been watching for many years. You were doing the pro-Jewish, pro-Israel content way before it was the trendy thing, long before October 7th. Lots of people, many Jews know who you are. You Israel Advocacy Movement. Joseph Cohen has been in the parks of London battling it out with Mohammed Hijab and the like for many years. He now lives in Israel, so I mean you probably don't get too much time to go to those parks anymore. But I'm sure many of my subscribers probably know who he is, and it's an honor to finally have you on the show.
The pleasure is all mine. And when you put it that way, it's quite depressing that I've been into anti-Semitism before anti-Semitism was fashionable, or at least not the
Mm.
rebounds. It's a tragic place that the Jewish people find themselves.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And but nonetheless, I mean, you've been doing this for years and in a very entertaining way because you don't just battle anti-Semitism, you do so from a lens of really knowing your Islam, really knowing your Quran, and you throw it back at people who are supposedly knowledgeable on the Quran and Islam, and they're usually quite stumped, you know, and it's very entertaining. I mean, I've been enjoying your content for a long time, Joe. It's great. And now you're in Israel, totally different message, a message of, hey, I got out of there, I had to leave. English Jews, it's coming to an end, right? Their
Yeah.
safety in the country.
So
So
I'd say it's not just England, it's Europe in general. I can't speak for America because I'm not an expert on America, but I know Europe and it's grim. I for a long time I've been saying the writing is on the wall. Now the writing is carved with a great chisel and then colored in with the blood of the Jewish community. It's desperate in Europe, and I think that's coming to America. But I don't think America's quite where Europe is. But with the recent election of Mamdani, who knows what's down the line?
right. So you're saying for Jews in England and Europe in general, Paris, France, you think it's already past that threshold? They need to start making decisions.
I mean, for the anti-Semitism was coming in dribs and drabs when I first started getting into activism. For people that aren't aware of my story, I come from a very left-wing background, was massive anti-racist, moved into interfaith work when I started becoming observant, thought I could bridge the differences between Jews and Muslims by sharing the similarities within our faith. Realized how bad anti-Semitism, this was like over a decade ago, how bad anti-Semitism was in the UK. And so founded the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, which is now a charity dedicated to fighting anti-Semitism in the UK on the streets, in the courts, wherever it raises its head. They do an incredible job and has nothing to do with me, so I can't take any credit for that. Um, and then the 2014 war broke out and the anti-Semitism disappeared. And what persisted was, I don't hate Israelis. Sorry, I don't hate Jews. I just hate Israelis. I don't hate Judaism. I just hate Zionism. And I decided to launch the work I do now, which is the Israel Advocacy Movement and using video to combat anti-Semitism. And the difference between the 2014 war and today is just that they are miles apart. There is a tsunami of hate that's bearing down on the Jewish community of Europe, and it's coming from all directions. It's coming from the far left. It's coming from the British Muslims or the Muslims in Europe. It's coming from the far right. And at each juncture of our history, the Jewish community has cozied up to a faction it thinks is sympathetic or more sympathetic to it, and it allies with them. So at one point, it would have been the far left. Recently, Jews have been cozying up to conservatives and the right, thinking that they've got our back. Well, post Trump, that's looking very shaky. And if you go back into our history, the same was true. We would go to different Khulafa Muslim caliphates because the Christians were oppressing us. And so at different points, we've looked for support from different communities. And at some point, those communities have turned their backs on us. I'm not aware of a time in our history when almost every single community, like major political movement, major faith, is turning on the Jewish people all at the same time. And it's accelerating. I'll give examples in a minute of what it's like in the UK and why I personally just pulled my family out of there as quickly as I could. But it's looking scary for the Jews of Europe.
It really is. You're giving me so many thoughts now. Like it's really quick. You know what I think it also is? It's every generation, there's this trend where things are great. Jews make it to the upper echelons of society. We feel this very, very secure, this level of comfort, and then things start to dwindle and end up in this downward spiral. And like you said, we naturally feel like so many people don't like us, so we tend to cling to the one person or group that does, and then we are surprised when they don't. And then we shift to some other group that may be on the opposite end of the spectrum. We go, oh no, no, well maybe they like us, and then they also don't seem to be supportive, and we're like, what's going on? Why is nobody in supportive of us? And then we start getting attacked, and we start getting blamed and labeled, and before we know it, we're all alone in the dark, and everybody's kind of teaming up. So we also don't want to ever admit that that's happening. We keep
Yeah.
trying to say, nah, it can't be, nah, it can't be, nah, it's not that, it's not it's not what it was, it's not that time that we want to
And it's
avoid remembering.
always,
Yeah.
and just the vibe of what you're saying, it's always the community that we're having affinity to. So apologies for making about the UK because I know most of your audience are based in Britain. But during the Jeremy
But
Corbyn
well,
years,
I have quite some non-Jewish Brits that follow me now because of Tommy Robinson. Did you see today? Yeah.
yeah, I saw that. And you had some incredible guests, and I feel like the bar suddenly dropped for me. But thank you for having me. But so yeah, we're going with the. I kind of lost my chain of thought. I got distracted by the caliber of your guests. Um, it's gone. It will come back.
Thank you. That's very nice of you. I'm glad you forgot your thread of thought by the compliment. That's nice of you. It'll come back
Suddenly
as soon as
intimidated, lost for words, following the footsteps of the giants you've had on this podcast.
Joseph, don't be so. I appreciate the humility, but you're quite against yourself, kind sir. Uh, now, I'll just throw a couple of things that are on my mind right now. Now, Mamdani's being elected. My grandmother, God rest her soul, she just passed about a month and change ago, and she was my mother pretty much. She raised me. So she would always teach me these things, these fundamental. There's some fundamental things, many fundamental things that woman taught me. One of those things was the Jewish people have enemies because God is trying to show us that we're simply not listening to him. He's giving us certain clear instructions, certain clear rules, and we're not listening to those rules, and he's trying to send us a message so that we listen to him. And it's she said this to me as a kid, and it's kind of the fundamental here, the fundamental lesson here. And the fundamental lesson, I believe, is that he's saying, well, I ultimately want you to come to Israel. Like, I know that as somebody that doesn't live there, but I think he's also saying if you are not going to go there, or if uh, you don't believe it's the right time, or because that's complicated. Like, is Mashiach coming? When's Mashiach coming? Who is he? Who's she? Yada yada yada. In the meantime, if you're going to do certain, I believe, certain things that aren't in line with what I expect or what you should be doing, then I'm going to send you individuals or groups that are going to kind of force you in that direction, right? So there are certain degenerate things that we may be doing that are not in line with what we're supposed to do. Like, this is just what it is. Gotta say, like, you know it, I know it. A lot of people, a lot of Jews don't know it. We're just oblivious to it. And he sends Mamdanis and he sends British Muslims that are
Yeah,
trying to kill us to remind us that we're supposed to be doing things we're not doing. This is just what it is,
absolutely.
man. This is just what it is, and we don't
And
want to listen to it. So until we get the hint, we're going to keep having these people that remind us. So Mamdani is being, I believe Mamdani is being elected to remind us of those things, and either we take the hint or like, meaning the groups of Jewish people that are pushing ideas, that are doing things that are antithetical. Is that, yes, that makes sense. I'm tired. That are antithetical to Jewish thought, Jewish idea, Jewish tradition, Jewish law. They're going to be the catalyst for why Jews are not safe outside of Israel. And
yeah,
if we, yeah, yeah, no,
yeah, I
I'm
don't like to attribute blame to people, but I've fully like in terms of I don't like blaming Jews for the situation we're in today, but I wholeheartedly agree with you in that anti-Semitism is the greatest reminder of the fact that we're Jewish. And listening to you reminded me of what I was going to say, and it ties into Mamdani. And I was mentioning Corbyn. So in the UK in 2016, in that period when we had Jeremy Corbyn,
Mhm.
all of the left-wing Jews just clung to that community desperately, 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 hoping they'd got it wrong. Today in the UK, the establishment Jews, I hate that term establishment Jews, but those from the established institutions that have preserved British Jewry for generations, that have the ear of business leaders and have the ear of politicians and are able to express the concerns of the Jewish community, they desperately cozy up to the British government, be it a conservative government or a Labour government, because that's what's worked in the past. And in America, you've got democratic Jews voting for Mamdani, convinced.
Mumdanites. He sounds like a Roman. Mumdanites.
He's a very
Like the new.
important Greek or Roman philosopher,
He could. By
philosopher
the way, you
of
know how he does
socialism.
impressions. He does every impression in the book. He's Indian one. He's like Kamala Harris. He's Indian one day. He's French another day. Yeah, I know you were saying.
And so these Jews, they'll vote for Mamdani. They'll vote for um, politicians who ultimately do not have the interests of the Jewish community at heart. And it's only until it's too late that we realize actually this person does not have our interests at heart. There's very few Jews left in the UK that ally with Jeremy Corbyn today. But in his early years, they were convinced. There were many that were convinced he wasn't actually an anti-Semite, and he was just a socialist who had the interests of the masses at heart. And I think I think this is the exact reason. It doesn't matter how the reason you were saying. It doesn't matter how much we believe we are the same as them,
Mm.
and we can believe it with every fiber of our body. They, at some point, do not. And I probably have more conversations with ordinary ordinary anti-Semites than anyone else in the world. I speak to hundreds of people every day to create
Hmm.
content. And when I was in the UK, those conversations were on the street. They were at protests. They were at places like Speaker's Corner. And you were speaking to people who have a political agenda. You were speaking to people who wanted to tell the world a message. They were at a protest because they felt passionately about Palestine. They were at Speaker's Corner because they wanted to convert the world to Islam or Christianity. When I moved to Israel, I lost that opportunity to speak to ordinary people because I wander into the villages that surround me. I'll be able to speak for about 30 seconds and then somebody will remove my head from my shoulders and the conversation will tragically come to an end. And so
Right.
and so I started speaking online, and this has been the most scary thing I've ever experienced is speaking to ordinary people online. I speak to hundreds, and I'd say anti-Semitism of the people that stop and have a chat, 50% of them are anti-Semitic. And I'm not talking like they have one view which is questionable, like they maybe they think that what Israel is doing is synonymous with what Hitler did. No, I'm talking hardcore Talmudic conspiracy theories. They're in the pits, the sewers of internet culture. But this is ordinary people. Like I was speaking to a far left woman yesterday, a couple of days ago. Far left. So remember, far left are very much about helping the vulnerable, creating an egalitarian society where we're all equal. And she was arguing with me. She said, there's no such thing as an illegal immigrant in Britain. Every person is legal. Like, if they apply for citizenship and they're granted it, it doesn't matter where they come from. They have every right to live here, there. And British people have a moral obligation to take them on. Then we got on to Israel. And all of a sudden, Jews can't live there. No, no, Jews can't live in Israel. Anybody, the world's welcome to live in Britain, but Jews, they can't live in their ancestral homeland. So, okay, this is interesting. Let's scratch the surface. Within 30 seconds, she was denying the Holocaust. This is a far left person who believes in open borders and no person is illegal because everybody has a right to humanity, to human dignity, to liberty, except the Jews. And there is this tsunami, literal tsunami of hate that's sweeping through all of Western society at the moment, and it's being fueled from everywhere. Muslim commentators, far right, and not even far right, right wing commentators, left wing commentators, and unfortunately, certainly in Europe, the institutions of government that are supposed to protect us have hopelessly failed us.
It really doesn't matter what direction it comes from. You all hear you. I mean, you hear a different version of the same thing. It's just cloaked differently. There's different icing on it. Same, really the same cake ultimately. But it's all religious, truthfully. Like it really all it's when you really peel back the layers, it really all comes down to replacement theology. We killed Jesus, the Islamic ideas, the Garquad tree, the end of times. It's all really with whether people realize it or not, really all the hate, primarily, envy, jealousy, things like that. But I think if Jews are going to stay outside of Israel, because being living in Israel has its own dangers too. Regardless of that, it's not as if being in Israel is so simple. But the difference is when things get really bad, you're going to be in a much better position than I am. If Florida becomes a very dangerous place for Jewish people, I'm totally, excuse my French, I'm fucked. You at least have an army behind you. It's a very different scenario. So even if things are safer right now for me in South Florida day to day, that's just right now.
And so, just to build on that, I'll give you three incidents that happened. So, when I was living in the UK just after October the 7th, a Muslim terrorist came into our local kosher supermarket and started acting a bit suspicious. He started asking people, "Are you Jewish? Well, it's a kosher supermarket. What do you think, mate? This is we're not Buddhist." And then he started asking people what their views were on Israel and Palestine. And within a few seconds, he pulled out a huge kitchen knife and started trying to stab Jews. Fortunately, one of the workers there, just an ordinary Orthodox Jew, grabs a shopping cart, pushes him away. And you can watch a video of this online. And he keeps him away with a shopping cart until the terrorist is detained. It's all on camera. Clearly an anti-Semitic hate crime where the person is trying to murder Jews. There's a word
Hmm.
for that, terrorism. He didn't get 1 day, 1 hour, 1 minute in jail. There was no, the CPS did not send a terrorist who tried to stab Jews to jail. So, fast forward to Yom Kippur this year, a Syrian Muslim called Jihad goes to a Manchester synagogue. So, there's two main communities in the UK, London being the biggest Orthodox community, Manchester being the second biggest. And he murders a Jew. And tragically, another Jew is killed in the shooting between the police and the terrorists. And I remember speaking to my father because later that week there was a terrorist attack not far from my house here in Israel. And I remember telling my father, it's a very blunt and simplistic way of putting it, but wherever we live, there are people that are trying to kill us because we are Jews. I'd rather be with the Jews who have guns and an army than those that don't. In our past, we've always depended on others to help us. We depended on, when one tyrant rose up to slaughter us, we depend on another ruler to rescue us, to save us. And today, when those tyrants rise up to cut us down, we have a military which rains fire on them. And so we are in amongst one of the most blessed generations of our history, certainly for the last 2,000 years. We have a military that will move mountains to save the lives of just one Jew. And that's an incredible blessing to be able to benefit from. So move to Israel.
No, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's just that we also now this ties into a phenomenal topic, and something tells me we're going to agree on it. And if we don't, that's also fine. This whole peace plan, right? We got the living hostages back, thank God. We still have dead hostages we haven't gotten back. I'm sure you agree that it was as much as we're happy they're back, well, I guess let's ask this. Do you feel it was the necessary thing to do despite obviously the terrible circumstance that we now have thousands of terrorists back onto the streets? Do you think we that was the only option, or do you think we should have done something else? Tough question, but I'd like to know.
So I don't have a good answer for this because I think any option is not good. Uh, I think I'd preface this with going forward, I would love to see Israel institute a law where we don't put terrorists in jail. And by terrorists, I don't mean someone who's throwing a stone. I mean somebody who's gone to a place of worship and buried an axe into a rabbi's head. The minute somebody does a crime like that, they no longer deserve the right to live. Israelis shouldn't be paying to keep this person alive because what happens is that individual gets paid by the Palestinian National Authority for the rest of their life. They get paid
Mhm.
millions of dollars and they now become a bargaining chip, an incentive for the kidnapping of further Israelis. And so the very first thing I would preface is just because you mentioned the released terrorists, I do not think we should be jailing terrorists because our enemies take advantage of our compassion, of our humanity. So we keep them alive. We put them in a jail. We pay for their meals. We pay for everything. And then 3, 4, 5, 10 years later, Hamas or some terrorist organization will kidnap our people, and that person, along with thousands of others, hundreds of others, will be exchanged for one Israeli life. So that's the first thing. I think we need to be much better at deterring these situations where our people can be kidnapped and traded. As for the ceasefire, I'm still a liberal at heart, and I'm not one of these people that wants to see Gaza flattened, its inhabitants removed. For me, I speak to Gazans every day. I speak to Palestinians every day. I speak to Arabs in Judea and Samaria, what many call the West Bank, and in Gaza. And I speak to peace activists. I speak to people who've had family members who are young children killed. I don't want to see a child dead. I don't care who the parent is. I don't want to see a child dead. And so the war is horrendous. But as long as Hamas operates in Gaza, there are going to be further rounds of violence. And the best way to not just save Israeli lives, which is obviously my priority is my people, my family. I live here. I want my kids to be safe. That's my number one objective. But to save their children and future generations, we need to end the cycle of violence. And as long as Hamas retains power, we're not going to be able to do that. Now, the proposal of putting in a, a peacekeeping force, or however they want to package it, of soldiers from Pakistan, where we're going to pay the Pakistanis $100 a soldier. They want $10,000. Israel being Israel, is like, we'll give you $100. What are these guys going to do? Israel is the Middle Eastern hegemon. It is the most powerful military force in this region. We've been fighting Hamas for 2 years, and they still have a stronghold in Gaza City. Like, no one else is going to be able to disarm Israel Hamas other than Israel, or if rival factions are able to rise up, which we're not really seeing that much of. So rival clans, if they're able, they may potentially be able to disarm as well. But it's going to be bloody. It's going to be ruthless. And so ultimately, to remove Hamas from power, ultimately to achieve peace, you need to remove Hamas. To remove Hamas, you need to use force. They're not going to disarm. They literally explicitly say, we're not disarming.
Mhm.
And so to get the peace, you need to disarm Hamas. To disarm Hamas, you need to use military force. I don't think the ceasefire is going to hold. I think we're going to. I mean, there's already fighting in Gaza as we speak, and I think that's going to intensify because Hamas will not honor their side of the bargain of the ceasefire, and so further conflict is inevitable. And even if we weren't to engage with Hamas, then all I believe we will see is a further escalation of violence, if not this year, next year, or the year after. It's going to return because Hamas's only reason for existence is the destruction of Israel. That's the only reason they exist.
Mhm. So I have two thoughts because you mentioned two sides. You mentioned uh, this part of Hamas needing to be removed, but how do we do that? And then you also mentioned that we should essentially be giving the death penalty to terrorists instead of putting them in prison. Now, a devil's advocate question, and somebody that I speak to who's Arab, who's on the pro-Palestinian side. Now, the question was, what if a Jew kills a Muslim in a similar fashion? What if he stabs a Muslim, kills somebody in Judea and Samaria? Are we going to apply that same death penalty law? Should we, or does the Jewish side get privilege because it's Israel and they don't want to kill a Jew? This is a tough question. But if we're going to apply the death penalty, do we make it equal? Is there total equality on that? How does that work?
So, so I think truthfully, you have to look at the reasoning for. And if we got to a state where there were Jewish factions within Israel, let's say some of the more extreme groups on the right or on the left, and they were doing similar strategies to Hamas, then yes, I would apply that to Jews. But that's not the case. We are in a military conflict. So we're not talking, we are in a time of war. And Israel has effectively been at war since its re-establishment in 1948.
Hmm.
And so I think the laws that you apply to and when I'm talking to if a Bedouin who lives in the Negev was to carry out an armed robbery and killed a Jew, I wouldn't classify that as the same categorization as what Israel calls a nationalistic crime, where a Palestinian nationalist, an Arab nationalist, who wants to replace the Jewish state with an Arab state and is at war with the Jewish people. I wouldn't categorize those as the same crimes. They're very different. And the incentives around the two murders are very different. One is to do with the destruction of a state. That person will then be compensated by an enemy. By I don't want to call the Palestinians a state because they're not, but by an enemy entity, an enemy
Mm-hmm.
non-state. Um, they also, the person who's carrying out the attack against Jews believes that in killing Jews, even if they're killed and made a shaheed, a martyr, they go to Jannah, they get paradise. So there's an
Mm-hmm.
entire different incentive structure behind why that crime is being carried out by the Arab nationalist than the Jewish nationalist. However, if similar incentives arose where there's no way of deterring someone from carrying out a terror attack if they think that if they die they're going to go to heaven. If they die, their family's going to get compensated, and if they live, they're going to get compensated and could be traded in an exchange years down the line. So I think there is a clear moral case to treat those different situations very differently. The two cases very differently, and it wouldn't be a blanket. If an Arab kills a Jew, then the Arab gets the death sentence, and if the Jew kills an Arab, the Jew's spared the death sentence. Um, no, if an Arab kills a Jew because it's part of a crime, like just robbery or something, it's not nationalistic. It's completely different. Then the criteria would be that's applied would be very different. So I personally wouldn't apply the same rule. I think any Jew that kills an Arab in cold blood in Judea and Samaria, in Israel, should be locked up for the rest of their life. It's barbaric. I don't believe in vigilante violence. We have a military, we have an incredible military which can handle any Arab threat. For I'm by Arab threat, I'm talking terrorism. It's not for individuals to take that into their hands. So if someone's going into a Muslim place of worship and murdering Muslims, that person deserves jail for the rest of their life. And truthfully,
Right.
depending on the gravity of the crime, I'm not opposed to the death sentence. And so if it's particularly brutal, I I wouldn't be opposed. If someone
Because I think
murders,
we,
sorry,
yeah, no, go ahead. I think we have like, let's be very frank here. Let's be, and I'm not going to speak for you. I'll speak for myself. I don't want to say that this is the case, but it's a possibility that I have more empathy for a Jew who commits a nationalistic attack because they're Jewish and they're my family member, and I have this more of this. You feel more guilty, like, oh, I don't want to kill one of my brothers. The Muslims absolutely have that in the Muslim world. In Iran, for example, there was a Jew and a Muslim that fought. This happened maybe a year ago, and the Jew ended up killing the Muslim guy. Maybe it was a knife fight. He claimed it was self-defense, but according to Islamic law, the Muslim has the final say. Uh, his say in court value is valued more, and essentially the Muslims' relatives were able to decide what the decision was, whether he should be murdered or not, whether he should be jailed, yada yada. They had the final say in what would happen. But if the Jew was killed in that scenario, he wouldn't have such a decision to make. It would be up to the courts, or it would still be up to the Muslim side of the family. I don't think the Muslim side of the family would then decide because their son was the one who did the killing. But the point is the Jewish side does not get the priority in any sense. There's no equality there. But if we're going to claim that we're a democratic country, we're not a theocracy, and etc., then we have to work according to these equal laws. This is at least what people could challenge us on. So as much as I would support the death penalty for nationalistic terrorism, it also means that that could be applied to us if we're talking from a democratic standpoint, I would say.
and so yeah, for me,
I
truthfully,
think
I
that's been the
don't have that. Yeah, I don't have that much empathy for a Jew that murders. Like, just go to an extreme because I think the extremes are the best places to go. You've got a
yeah,
bedroom. There's five young Arab children in it from the ages of 8 months old to 8 years old.
Hmm. Hmm.
If a Jew went in and butchered those innocent lives, for me, there's no empathy for that Jew. Um, the
It's a
reason
good
why,
answer.
yeah, and so I have empathy for my people. I love my people. Um, but as Jews, we are supposed to operate on a high level. That's why I'm a religious Jew. There's a clear moral code that's laid out by the sages, by the Torah. And if we deviate from that and do evil, then you kind of lose the empathy. You're kind of removing yourself
It's a
from
very
the
good answer.
behavior and from the tribe. But for me, the distinction is not democratic. It's that we are at war, and at times of war, the the rules aren't equally applied. You don't apply the same rule to your civilian population as you do to an enemy military, which is what effectively Palestinian nationalist terrorists are. So completely different rules apply to them, for the reasons I poorly, but I believe I laid out.
Hmm. Yeah, I think the intentions definitely matter. I mean, they matter. They matter in the rule of law in the United States, right? If you go and you accidentally run someone over with your car, accident, it's not going to be treated as the same if you sit there and stab someone 63
Yeah.
times. The intentionality makes a huge difference, as it should. Now, the second point you mentioned with Hamas, I didn't know you had a liberal background, and I've listened to a bunch of your videos, and maybe you've mentioned it many times, but I don't know, I just didn't hear that part. You're mentioning getting rid of Hamas. Now, I've been of the belief, and to me it's very clear that it's not about Hamas or the name of the group, whether it's Islamic Jihad, Lions Den, Hamas, uh, Muppets Jihad, whatever the hell you want to call it. It's an ideology. It's a religious fueled ideology that is uh, deeply rooted in Palestinian and Islamic culture, and it comes from religious belief, right? Of not allow of Jews not being able to rule over this land. It's Muslim land. It's been Islamized, yada yada. How do you contextualize that? Because it's not,
So,
we defeat Hamas. What is defeating Hamas? Even if there's one person who has Hamas beliefs, they can eventually recruit more people. Like, where does it? Help me make sense of that.
so Islam is a very broad religion, and Gaza is a unique case because a very extremist ideology has been in control for 2 decades now. Half the population is under the age of 18, which means that half of the population has been raised and weaned on Jew hate. And you're absolutely right in saying it's not just Hamas. All of the factions, from the moderates, Abu Mazen, who pays terrorists to kill Jews, to the extremists of Hamas, they all share this desire to destroy the Jewish state. But Gaza is particularly intense because of who's been in control. The most extreme faction has been in control, certainly one of the most extreme factions, has been in control of the strip for 2 decades, and they've raised gener- the entire youth on this ideology. And so you're right in saying that it's not just Hamas, it's all the factions, but and I think you're saying beyond the factions, you're saying it's the Gazans, and I believe that is true. Um, However, Hamas are the ones with military control.
Mm,
There's no other faction in Gaza that's capable of controlling the entire strip than Hamas. They are the only entity that can do that. So if you remove Hamas's ability to control Gaza, you can then assert control. You can look to begin to de radicalize a population. Because I think the only chance that it has, if a sizable community remains in Gaza, which is looking likely that it will, the only chance we have for peace is if that community, that society, that population is de radicalized, similar to Nazi Germany. And which is not,
mm,
these aren't original thoughts. This is what pretty much any the majority of commentators are saying. If Gaza it remains, then the population needs to be de-radicalized. But the reason Hamas is the focus is because no other Alexa Martyr brigades can't hold Gaza together. Any of the fighting clans that are clashing with Hamas, they can't hold Gaza individually. One clan, Islamic Jihad can't. None of the factions can, and so that's why Hamas is the number one target to remove. If you cut off the head, which is Hamas, then you can begin to de-radicalize the masses. But you're right; it's not just Islam, by the way. There are Christians here. Christians are one of the most complex communities here, by the way. Christians are literally persecuted by Muslims in Judea and Samaria. It's a fact. They will never, in private, they'll tell you, they will never say it publicly. And
Mm.
publicly, they will support Hamas. Support the Palestinian national cause, not Hamas. They will support the Palestinian national cause. And there are Christians who've even waged effectively jihad against Israel from the Palestinian community, from the Arab community. And so it's not just Islam. Islam is the driving force, but it's a nationalist conflict, and you will have secular Arabs who are fighting us, Christian Arabs who are fighting us, but the overwhelming majority are Muslim. And so religion is definitely a huge component of this conflict. And it's certainly what keeps the conflict alive outside of these borders.
I believe it's almost entirely the driver behind it. I think at this point, because the economic and societal circumstances are poor and grim, Christians associate themselves, the ones living in Judea and Samaria, so they associate themselves oftentimes more with the Muslims. That's been a narrative that has been created. They live inside those borders, they live in those villages with them, and so since they have to take part in these checkpoints, and they're essentially put in the same predicament as their Muslim counterparts, then it's natural, I think, that they're going to see a common enemy in the Jewish people. Again, they're not able to speak out against their the leaders of these villages and towns. It doesn't work that way. You can't speak it against them. So the root of the issue is Islamic fundamentalism. It's not to say because
What
you
what
can't
what is
sit here
Islamic
and treat
fundamentalism? What's the difference between Islam and Islamic
not
fundamentalism?
nothing. It's just even a silly word to say. The truth is genuine Islam versus moderate Islam.
Okay, what's moderate Islam? Because these this is one of the things I think we need to get
Moderate
into.
Islam is simply not taking Judaism, not taking Islam at face value, choosing
But
to
if you
disregard.
take the
Yeah,
Emiratis, they're
yeah.
definitely not what people would describe as moderate by Western. Like, there's no gay pride in
They
Dubai. There's
are
no
they are
there's
mo but they're moderate Muslims compared to they are, for example, allowing Westerners to strut around in bikinis and drink alcohol and do those other
but
things inside their
they would
country.
say that's because by a authentic reading of Islamic scripture, a fundamental reading of Islamic scripture, that's permitted. Alcohol isn't haram for Christians, for Jews under that are living under the Khalifa, under the Caliphate. So they would have a different take. But they're still fundamentalists. This is why I don't like these terms moderate, Islamist, fundamentalist, extremist.
I think
It's
they're just smarter. I think they've moved on. I think they've reformed. But I think deep down, many of them still say, well, there's going to come a time we're going to have to deal with this because there's these idol worshippers in our country that due to it'll bring us economic prosperity if we're more open-minded. But I think many of them still think to themselves, we're kind of allowing a level of degeneracy in our country, but for the greater good of peace and humanity, we'll allow it. Look what it's brought us. It's brought us these beautiful cities and this, because we've decided not to create this barrier between the West. We've allowed for this sort of mixing with both. We have our boundaries. California. We're not like the United States or London and what have you, that's just so liberal and open and free. we have a level of Islamic, there's no public display of affection, there's no gay rights, yada yada. So we still have our Islamic boundaries, but instead we're not like Afghanistan where a non-Muslim woman has to cover her hair. As long as you're non-Muslim, certain things, certain freedoms apply. You get me? So there's a bit of more of a balance, but I don't think
I
that
think
yeah.
I think it's not quite how you're framing it. I think there's a genuine um the Emiratis I suppose. So if you look at Emirati society, every Saudi, every Emirati I speak to online, well, I'd say like 9 out of 10 of them
Mhm.
hate us with every fiber of their body. We're under this illusion that everyone in the Emirates loves us. Everyone in Saudi, deep down, they love us and they can't wait for normalization. The opposite is true. It's the educated classes, those connected with the leaders, who are very positive and looking towards peace. And I don't think it's just out of a desire to make money. I think Islam's got a very difficult theological challenge in that theologically they're supposed to dominate the world. Al Kitab, particularly Bani Israel, the Jews, are supposed to be under them with a dhimma. We're one of we're supposed to pay a tax of humiliation. We're supposed to be protected, but under the
Christians too.
Muslims.
Yeah.
Yeah, Christians too, but Christians had empires, and Christianity has been at war with Islam since Islam's start. The Jews never had that. The Jews were under. The Jews were
Always, yeah.
clearly subordinate, and theologically, the Muslim world is coming to terms with not being at this position of dominance, and it has to find a way of reconciling their current position with the scripture that they have. And there's different paths you can go. So you can have the Muslims who say, well, all the Jews have been collected in Israel, so that when the Mahdi comes, we can kill them all in one go. That's why they're there.
That's what we got to build
That's
more Garquad. Are you building enough Garquad trees around your house? We got to start building Garquad
I
trees.
made sure I had a garden which we could plant an entire orchard. And these rocks, if you see them screaming out, just let me know. Oh,
Sounds like
Muslim,
Shrek,
Muslim,
by
there's
the
a
way.
Jew behind me.
There's
Um,
a Jew behind me. It's funny. It sounds like
and
Lord Farquaad. Whenever I hear a Garquad, I always think of Shrek. I don't know why. I imagine like a Palestinian, a big chubby Palestinian, a green colored Palestinian with the little Shrek ears. He's got a Scottish accent. He's running across one of these hills trying to get into Yishuv.
well, they do play bagpipes here as one of the many things they got from the British as well as their entire identity. They got the
Yeah.
bagpipe band, so it's not so unrealistic.
I'm saying,
Um,
see, my imagination's taking me somewhere. Oh my
and
God!
so
Oh my God! We have to go and kill him. We have to go and kill him. Fiona. There's some Palestinian lady named Fiona. Anyway, donkey. It makes sense. Donkey. There's definitely gonna be a donkey. Yes. Yes. I don't know where Eddie Murphy plays into this, but anyway, maybe I'm missing something, but it sounds like we're agreeing that this is mainly religious. So how do you make?
So what we're saying is, I think the key thing we have is what was
I thought we
like
were
my key
disagreeing, and
message
then we
now.
ended up.
Well,
Yeah.
we're disagreeing and also maybe agreeing. So religion is the key, but that leaves you with a challenge. Do you write off all Muslims, or do you find Muslims that I don't describe the word as moderate because I don't believe they are. I don't believe Emiratis are moderate. I think they're quite fundamentalist. But their vision of Islam, which they're weaving in building in reaction to reality that they face. Israel's here. Israel's a military force. The caliphate doesn't exist. They have a very good life which they want to preserve, but they don't want to compromise on their Islam. And so a new Islam emerges, which can coexist with Israel. And it's
Mhm.
not moderate. It's just out of necessity. They can either be in eternal war, or they can recognize that Israel does not pose a threat to the Emirates. Actually, there's far more we can gain from working together. And so narratives emerge where we can coexist. One of my big things is showing Muslims verses in the Quran that support Jews being in this land. There is no verse in the Quran that doesn't support us being in this land. The opposite is true. I think we're the only people that are mentioned in the Quran where Allah gives that nation a particular plot of land. It says, "Ya qawmi udkhulu al-ada al-muqaddasa allati kataba Allahu lakum," which means Moses is speaking to the children of Israel, and he says, "Enter the holy land that God has written, kataba, assigned to you."
Mm,
And that doesn't happen anywhere else. Well, so if you show Muslims this, and you can have a fundamentalist Muslim who believes the Quran literally wants the Sharia, wants the Caliphate, but can tolerate Jews. But we're here because it's not incompatible with his narrative. Um, but where we agree is Islam is the fundamental obstacle or the driving force behind the conflict. It's what's motivating the left. It's what's even motivating the right. It's not a coincidence that Candace Owens and Jackson Hinkle have huge Muslim followings. They realize that by going against Israel, you can make bank. Qatar has deep pockets. And even without Qatar, YouTube has deep pockets. And if you capture a large 2 billion population of people, if you capture even a small section of that, you're making a lot of money, which is why Tucker Carlson went from regularly opposing Sharia to say, Sharia is not that bad. It's not
hmm
that bad. Now, Tucker Carlson 100% does not agree with Sharia. There are things in the Sharia which he would fundamentally be opposed to, or maybe he wouldn't. Maybe he's fine with child marriage. Maybe he's fine with beating your slave, but not as much. Sorry, beating your wife, but not as much as you beat your slave.
hmm
These are all part of the Sharia. Now, obviously, there'll be Muslims that may be watching your channel, which will have a different interpretation of these verses. But Tucker Carlson didn't shift because he was convinced by the moderate interpretations of these verses. He was convinced because he could make a lot of money, whether it's from Qatar, whether it's from YouTube, who knows. But it's the driving force behind the hostility towards Israel, the global hostility, is absolutely Islam. I believe if Islam was removed, or the rest of the world was removed, the Jews and the Arabs that live here would have solved their problems decades ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think humans are always going to find stupid shit to fight about from a human nature level. Whether you believe God, I believe God created the world, but I'm saying, speaking to the general public, speaking to the viewers, whoever, whether you have a belief in Mother Nature or God, humans are still going to fight in a sense the way animals fight for a multitude of reasons. A plethora, I like that. I always like that word. A plethora of reasons. We, we'll find different reasons. So I think the biggest obstacle to peace at this point is us, actually, is Israel, because the Muslim world, the Palestinians, for example, have been very clear in what they wanted since the beginning. It's us, to a large extent, who've had a hard time making sense of what we want, deciding what we want. We keep pushing 2 states and then pointing the finger at them for not accepting it when they were never going to accept it in the first place, nor should they. It's an asinine idea. Now, again, from a logical standpoint, two people want something, split it in half. We both get half of it. Great, both go home happy. Doesn't work that way with the Holy Land because there's a religious element. It's not a religious element is an understatement. That is the element. That's the root of it. And I think I just had a buddy of mine, Barack. He has a channel, Other Barack. I don't know if you've ever
I
seen
know,
his
Barack.
stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, good friend of mine. So I was saying that we don't want to fix the root. We don't want to water the root. The root of the tree is damaged. It needs nutrients. We keep trying to fix the branches because it's an easier problem to solve, but it doesn't bring a solution to the issue. It simply puts a band-aid on it. And since 1948, we've been trying to fix branches because solving the root it's a painful job. It could take many years to do, and we don't even know what that's going to look like. But we need to do that if we ever want to come to have a semblance of peace with the other side. We'll to even have a better scenario amongst ourselves because we have such a divide amongst ourselves as well. Thank God we don't kill each other, but gotta fix the root. Now, I mean, what's your take?
So I agree. I was 100% behind the two-state solution for most of my adult life,
Can't
and
believe that. How?
I abandoned it.
Yeah.
I abandoned it before October 7th. I became solution agnostic, whatever brought peace, long before, maybe 6, 7 years ago. So if you watch videos of me from back in the day, I will say, okay, I don't care what the solution is, as long as the majority of the people are able to thrive in prosperity and peace in this land.
You were religious at that point, no?
Yes, yes, religious. Yeah, yeah.
So how could you believe in two states if you're a religious Jew?
I mean, okay, so just, okay, are you a religious Jew?
No, I grew up religious, but
Uh,
I'm currently not. I
okay,
wouldn't say it.
okay, so then I won't ask you then. But most religious Jews are okay with us not having all of biblical Israel because most of us define Israel today by Western British mandatory Palestine borders. Nothing to do
Yeah.
with the modern state. Sorry, the biblical state. And so we make compromises constantly on what the Holy Land can be today. Um, and so, yes, I was religious then, but I have no issue. I actually, I'll give a story because a story is the best way I can explain this. And it's about an Arab banner from East Jerusalem. He sees himself as Palestinian. I was doing a documentary with the BBC. Most of this wasn't on the documentary, but we're talking, and he's he was 17 years old when he was put in jail for terrorism. He threw a grenade at the IDF. No one died, but you go to jail if you throw a grenade. Um, unsurprisingly. And so in jail, he thought, I'm going to research my enemy. They've put me in this cage. I want to know about them. I'm going to research the big lie. They've made up this lie about a Holocaust so that they could steal my country. And so he started reading about the Holocaust and realized that the Jews had been to Jahannam, to hell. Our existence was one of torment and torture and trauma. And he realized that we've suffered. And he came to the realization that we should share the land. And
Mm.
so he's released from jail and he goes to the UK, to Bradford, as every Muslim does in the UK. And he does his thesis on the Holocaust. Then he comes back to Israel, starts a family, marries a woman, I think, from Jerusalem, an Arab woman, Muslim. They have a daughter. Everything's going fine. And then a soldier shoots his daughter in the back and kills her. The state pays out compensation. So this was not, there's no justification for her death. And any compensation that the state paid doesn't touch or come close
Of
to
course not.
the loss. But the reason I was mentioning the compensation is to show that there's no ifs, buts, or maybe she should still be alive today. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I remember so he tells me this story, and I'm thinking, and he tells me that if I said that if that happened to me, I would have joined Hamas. I would have joined Islamic Jihad. I would have gone full. How could the people who I'm trying to make peace with inflict me in such a cruel way? Um,
Fauda,
and
Fauda, the TV show
yeah,
Fauda shows this very well because, and I can understand this nuance completely. He was kind of coming away from extremism and he was trying to understand his enemy and say, I have an empathy for them. They've been through a lot, man. Maybe there's peace. Then all of it goes to shit when some soldier kills his daughter. He's like, everything I took me, it was so hard for me to make that mental switch. I put such an effort into trying to come to the side of peace, and now you just fucked all of it up. And now I kind of want to go back to my old ways and just get revenge because yeah, but and it's so hard for me to blame him in that
yeah,
scenario. But in my opinion, I still can't move away from the fact that at the end of the day, it still stems all of it when you peel it back long enough stems from the religious component. Fowler does a beautiful way
so
in showing that yes, the religious part is the root, But then when there's the constant tit for tat attacks, you killed my daughter, I'm gonna go kill his cousin, and we're gonna go into that village, and then we're gonna go into that settlement, and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. But we still have to eventually, for the sake of both sides, come to an understanding of why we're in these constant revenge eye for an eye scenarios.
So I agree with you. And so
Yeah.
what this gentleman then said was, so he didn't become radicalized, and he joined an organization I'm not going to name because I don't actually like their message, but I have
Mhm.
nothing but respect for the people that do it. He works with an organization of bereaved parents, Arabs and Jews.
Okay.
And this guy, we were stood, do you know the Aish building in Jerusalem?
Yeah,
So
of
it
course.
overlooks the hotel. So we're on
Yeah.
a balcony there, me and him, and we're looking over Har Bayit. And he looks to me and he said, "Look, Yusuf, peace is going to come eventually. We're not going to kill each other forever." And for him, human lives are more important than rocks and soil. And so he told me, he said, look, you can either become a catalyst for peace, you can help bring about peace, or you can be a barrier to that.
Hmm.
And so I agree with him that land is of less value than human life. I think you mentioned Chabad before. The Lubavitcher Rabbi said the same thing. He said we should give up land tomorrow if it brings peace. He rightfully said that's not going to bring peace. And so the issue is then, okay, I had no issue with a two-state solution because I value human life above soil, above rocks. However precious that rocks and soil is to me, where I was mistaken, and it's what you're alluding to now, is that the creation of a Palestinian state could bring that peace. It won't. Palestinian nationalism isn't about creating a two-state solution, it's about creating Palestine. Whenever you see Palestine represented on a map to this day, it's never the West Bank and Gaza. It's never Judea and Samaria and
Of
Gaza.
course not.
It's
Of course not.
always Western British mandatory Palestine. And as long as you have these two conflicting nationalist ideologies, you're going to have perpetual conflict. And so if you drive around, we don't even need to go down that. I was just going to explain the fiction of Palestinian nationalism and the necessity for it. There is enough land here to accommodate both people, provided there is no hostility. So I'm actually for one state solution now. I'm for giving Arabs full equality with Jews. I believe their numbers are inflated. I don't believe there's as many Arabs living in Judea and Samaria as as they would like us to believe.
Why do you
You
say
drive
that?
around, so it's in their interest. The Palestinians attract billions of dollars every single year, billions, and that goes into construction and construction and construction. If you go to any of the major construction areas, whether it's in Ramallah, whether it's in Bethlehem, whether it's in Rawabi, you'll see high rise after high rise with beautiful columns and beautiful stone facades, newly constructed, but no one's there.
Right.
They're taking the money from Europe, from America, to build a state, and they'll populate it later. But it's in their interest to boost their numbers because one, it's money. UNRWA gets money from the West, millions and millions and millions of dollars from the West. The more people they have, the more money they have. Um, and so the numbers are inflated. I believe Israel has a clear Jewish majority, and would, even if we annexed Judea and Samaria. My preference would be to annex and to give the Arabs equal rights. Any nationalists who are advocating for a Palestinian state lose the right because that's going to lead to more conflict. But my ultimate, I speak to so many Palestinians like on the daily basis, like here in Israel and Judea and Samaria, and they want Israel. Many of them. Why? Because one, You wouldn't have corrupt leaders. They hate the PA more than they hate Israel. They see Arab judges sending Jewish prime ministers and Jewish presidents to jail in Israel, and their corrupt leaders are pocketing millions and millions, billions of dollars, and it's completely corrupt. They're taxed, and they hate. They call the PA thieves. They hate the Palestinian Authority. And I mean, you can even go to polling that's done by groups like the Palestinian Center for Survey and Policy Research. And they'll show clearly that younger generations of Palestinians, certainly before October the 7th, would rather Israel was in control than than the Palestinian National Authority. And so I don't believe it would bring about a demographic end to Israel. I think Israel would remain a Jewish state. And I think once the fantasy of a Palestinian state is put to rest, both
Mhm.
people here would be able to thrive.
Okay, I would push back on that and say that I would not want them to have citizenship, maybe with this some, but we still have a few million between Gaza and Judea and Samaria that would add a few million Arab Muslims to our population. We already have 21%, which is a very high number as it is.
Yeah.
I
Just
don't
to
think
clarify,
we should
I'm not for
increase.
annexing. I'm not for annexing Gaza. I think that would be if there's 2 million people that have been educated by Hamas. Well, a million educated by Hamas. That I think that would be suicidal to integrate Gaza
I,
into Israel.
right. I don't think we should give them citizenship, but I think it should be part of. I think it should be part of Israel. The reason I say that, I think it all needs to be one Israel, one state, and we need to be very brutal against our enemies. This is the reality. This we live in the Middle East. We live in the Middle East. We're going to have to act like it. What that means is most Gazans support Hamas-like ideas. I think that can change over time. I would love to have peace with them. I hope it can happen, but there needs to be very clear set. Is the problem with the modern state of Israel is indecisiveness. I'm 31 years old, man. I'm not saying I have all the ideas. I'm not claiming that I know better than BB and I mean there are some leaders, man. I mean like Yair Lapid and other people like that. I think I do have a better understanding. I really do, man. Because
So, what would you
Yair Golan,
to riff on what you're saying? What would you do with the Arabs in Israel that already have citizenship?
elaborate on that.
So there's 2 million Arabs in Israel that have complete citizenship. You take like the
They
Bedouin
already
in the
have it.
south.
I'm not gonna. They already have it. I would strip it from them, but I would strip it for them from them. Uh, there needs to be very clear decision. So if I know that Hamoudi constantly posts pro Hamas content, then he should be placed in maybe an area of the West Bank. If we're not going to already arrest him, place it, strip his citizenship, and say, okay, listen, you clearly don't want to be a part of this country. You want to see it destroyed. You don't get to benefit from this country. Well, it's not yours. You stole it. I understand you believe that. Too bad. This is what we're in now. Like this is the world we live in. We're not giving up the country because you have a religiously fundamental belief and you believe it. You can believe it over here. You're gonna believe it over here. You're lucky that's all we're doing to you because if it was the other way around, and the Jews, you get what I'm saying? If the roles were reversed, you wouldn't be as kind to me. So
Yeah.
you're gonna now live in Ramallah or another or Shechem, Nablus, or wherever, and we still don't like you having your thoughts because it's a threat to us, but we'll be stupid enough to let you have them outside of, you get what I'm saying? And that still wouldn't be the best idea. The best idea would be to expel him somewhere else. Because what the Arab world would do to us if we had the opposite belief is they'd probably kill us for having that said belief. Because you can't even have dissidents among themselves, among their own people. Challenging. It's challenging, but I think again, I think this comes from indecisiveness. I think this comes from uh, the Palestinians saying,
And
"Well,
so,
Jews, you
so
don't seem." Yeah.
you wouldn't make a distinction between somebody posting a flag on social media and somebody carrying out a nationalistic terror attack. Like, so you're saying you'd
Of course I
expel that
would.
person. So I'm saying, would you expel? So someone posts a Palestinian flag on Twitter or X. What happens to them? They get expelled to Ramallah. They go to jail. They get a slap
No,
on the
no, I
wrist.
wouldn't. No, I think they should be able to have. I think it depends where it goes. Let's be realistic here. For the long haul, I think until Israel makes right decisions, you see, the thing is the Palestinian identity is going to continue to be an idea until there's clarity as to why it exists in the first place. A 15-year-old Palestinian living in Beit Hanina may not truly understand as a 15-year-old why this conflict exists. So he may very well see it from a national perspective as opposed to why it truly exists, which is religious. The whole Palestinian narrative only came to be to replace the Israeli identity. But a 15-year-old, he's not going to understand that because it's probably not what was taught to him. But then again, you have those parents that will explain to him, listen, it's not about land, it's not about Palestinian identity. We're Arab Muslims. The Jews are not supposed to be ruling this land. It's supposed to be Muslim. That's why we're here. Doesn't matter Palestinian, Schmalestinian, none of that makes a difference. You have plenty of Palestinian leaders who mention that. I believe Arafat said this. Plenty of them said it. Plenty of them, they know the reality of it. So the youth may not be aware of it, you know. So yeah, again, I think one state needs to be established. Otherwise, we're just going to continue to be in the cycle of violence. If we had one state, we could eventually, I believe, get rid of certain checkpoints, make things less restrictive for the Muslim side. It would take some time. I can't tell you exactly how it'll happen. I'm
By
not
the
a
way,
prophet.
the checkpoint thing is such a fantasy as well. It's like it's not. I was driving around Palestinian cities and villages. Really,
Hmm.
the only checkpoints that really exist, unless it's a like something's happening, is going into over the Green Line into say Jerusalem or somewhere. You have these big checkpoints. Literally, you can drive all around Yehuda Shomron, and there's no checkpoints. I drove into Bethlehem. I drove into different villages. There's no one. There's nothing. You just drive in and out. Is why there's so many Palestinian cars on the roads in Judea and Samaria. Um, but yeah, no, just to bring it back to it, I think we're
I mean,
agreeing
you
that we
still
maybe
have them.
disagree on some of the details. You do
Yeah.
have checkpoint. You do have
Yeah,
checkpoints,
you
but
have him. Listen, I did him. I was in the army. I served in Judea and Samaria. I was in Kfir. So like, I mean, like, there's checkpoints. It's not ideal. It's shitty. It's not a fun experience. But
what I'm
they're
saying is
there.
it's not
Yeah.
what people make out. Literally, I
Right.
anyway, I was driving all through Area 8 literally 2 days ago. Didn't encounter one checkpoint.
I'm a really right wing guy, but I'm saying like there's definitely inconveniences with checkpoints, but they need to be there, meaning they need to exist right now because we make stupid decisions.
So I think we got what I'm saying. Let's just be clear. So
Yeah, yeah,
take
yeah.
Bethlehem. You have checkpoint 300, which goes into Jerusalem. You can
Mhm,
walk over it. It's a big checkpoint. But you can just drive into Bethlehem if you go through. If you drive through the main checkpoint into the. If you're coming from Israel, if you come from Jerusalem, drive through into Judea and Samaria, and you can just drive straight into Bethlehem. The issue's coming the other way. If you're coming from Bethlehem into Israel, if you're coming from Judea and Samaria, sorry, into Jerusalem, if you come from Judea and Samaria into Jerusalem, then
mhm,
you'll go through checkpoint. And you do have. I'm not saying there aren't checkpoints. I'm just saying how it's framed in the media and what people experience, imagine the experience of the average Palestinian is
mhm.
nothing like the reality on the ground here. But this is a tangent. We don't need to debate the
Yeah,
checkpoints.
yeah, yeah.
I
So we
think
don't
we're
need
in
to delve
agreement
on it.
that one state solution, and we maybe have a different definition or a different idea of what should happen in that one state for the Arabs that live here. I'm not a fan of residencies because then we do become more. I don't want to hold myself to the same standard as my neighbors. So if Bashar al-Assad was putting electrocuting his political rivals, I don't think to survive here we need to do the same thing. I think we are better than those. I think there is no other army in the world that would have waged the military campaign that we waged in Gaza at great expense to our own soldiers to preserve the hostile civilian
Mhm.
population of our enemy. We
That's
move mountains to save
it's a
them,
mistake, though.
and I take.
A mistake.
You,
It's
you
not.
see
It
it as a
has.
mistake. I see it's a point of pride because what does it mean to be an Ola Goyim, a light unto the nations? It means to hold yourself to a higher standard than those that are around you. Um, I don't believe it was a mistake. I believe there were mistakes made. We could have fought the campaign far faster. We could have ignored American and international pressure. But the idea of emptying civilian neighborhoods because the civilians have nowhere to go. Sisi's not opening the border. We're certainly not opening the border to allow a hostile population to live amongst us. After that hostile population, the civilians crossed into Israel and butchered families. And so we're not taking them. They're not allowed to leave. So we come up with the solution of phoning and texting and dropping flyers, creating safe zones and maps and moving hundreds of thousands of people regularly so that they're able to live. I think that's a good thing. I think it's good that we hold ourselves to a higher moral standard than the savages that surround us. And the savages I'm talking about are Islamic Jihad, Hamas, just in case anyone thinks I'm talking about Arabs in general. I'm not. I work with Arabs on a daily basis here. Israel is a pluralistic society where everybody has equality. And I think that's a good thing, not a bad thing.
You
You
still
see it
got
as
the
a bad
London.
thing and we disagree.
You still got the London in you. You still got the London in you.
The Jewish in me, the Jewish in me, not the
No,
London.
I know. Listen, I don't misconstrue what I'm saying. It's just that we're doing things that are prolonging the issue. It's not to say that I believe in this Amalek kind of idea where we kill everybody and just this warmonger. I just want to murder everyone. That's not what I'm saying at all. But the problem is that there comes a time where too much Orla Goyim becomes an exaggerated, let's play this out for 2 years, let's continue to negotiate in
So
terrible faith.
I'm not arguing with you that that's not my
We
argument. My
because we
argument,
perpetuate, no, but hold on, but I think that maybe that's what I understood from it is like I absolutely think we should operate on a higher moral ground and we should try to save civilian lives, even on the enemy side. But there comes a point, there's an extent where we end up making it worse. We perpetuate a problem because our enemy Hamas sees it as a weakness and takes full advantage of it, and we end up playing out this war, which doesn't make us look better on the world stage. It doesn't save lives in the long run. Maybe it saves lives in the short term, but it surely doesn't save lives in the long term. And so our supposed rahmanut, or mercy, doesn't really do anything better in the long term. I just
I
I hear what you're
disagree. I
saying.
did
Okay, go ahead.
no,
Go ahead. Yeah.
where I disagree with. Well, first, I think the war could have been fought far faster. We shouldn't have listened to international pressure. But the concept
Well,
of
what does that
not
mean?
just carpet bombing.
Yeah.
So what? Use it. So when we go into a territory, hold that territory. Don't take a city, pull out, go in, go out, go in, go out, go in, and hold the territory. But the strategy of what we're doing, of removing civilians where possible from a neighborhood, is good not for the sake of looking good to the nations, but good because you save. Being an oligoyim means you're doing the right thing,
Yeah,
and the other nations will. Sorry.
but we're also saving Hamas. You see, like
No, but
it's
this is the thing. I disagree. I disagree.
okay.
We're
Okay.
not saving. Hamas have one stronghold left now. They've got Gaza, and that's it. Gaza City. We've taken the rest of the territory. Now we could have taken that territory faster, but all they have now is Gaza City. I believe we should be taking Gaza City. I believe we should completely control every inch of Gaza. Ultimately, I think that is the only way that moderate Muslims, just the Emirates, whoever can come in and de-radicalize the population, is if Israel holds it. But the concept of not just let's say there's a button. Here's a question, a genuine question, a moral question. You have a button in front of you now. You can press it, and everybody in Gaza just disappears. Would you press the button?
I surely as sure as hell wouldn't want to. No. When you say disappear, you mean they die or they go away? What
Let's
are they?
just say that they let's just say they cease to exist, but it doesn't have to be a painful thing. It's just like they stop existing.
No, I definitely don't want that to happen, but I'm saying like it's kind of a weird theoretical discussion because it's just like I want to be able to have the theoretical discussion, but I want to have more of a realistic theoretical
The
discussion.
the, the
Like
reason I'm saying that is
they go
because
away
you wouldn't.
without being in pain. I mean, No, I don't want Gaza. I want to live with them. I want to, in an
Okay,
ideal world, live with them. I don't want them to go, but I also,
and so that's
in
why
my,
I take pride. That's why I take pride in the way that the IDF has waged this campaign, this military campaign.
okay,
The United Nations says 70% of the buildings have been damaged or destroyed. There's
mm,
2 million people were living in Gaza or there or
mhm.
thereabouts. But we haven't seen 1.4 million dead Palestinians, Arabs. We've seen 70,000, 68,000 according to Hamas. And let's say their calculation that there's 10,000 under the rubble's correct. Let's say there's 80,000 dead. That's still a long way from 1.4 million, which would be 70%
But
of the
Joseph, there's a
population.
caveat.
What's the
Yeah, go ahead.
caveat?
No, the caveat is that something's got to give at some point. Meaning, I believe in mercy to our enemy because that's you have to be frank about that. Like the reality is at this current moment, it's not Hamas that should, oh, just Hamas is our enemy. No, no, no. The Gazans and the Arab Gazans and the Israelis, primarily the Jewish Israelis, are we are enemies. We are enemies. Now,
I mean, you can extend that to
hopefully,
there's
yeah,
150 million people surrounding us who are also enemies.
correct. No, it doesn't mean no, but we have to acknowledge that instead of the silly rhetoric of, oh no, the Gazan people are not our enemies. It's just the Hamas
No,
are
the
the enemy.
Gazans are our 100%
That's
they're our enemy.
no, 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 no. So we have to
100%.
be, but there's so much of this Hasbara that tries to play that silly game.
No,
We have
no,
to. It's just
Gazan
dishonest. So
civilians hate us. Their
correct.
houses are filled with weapons. They like there's the cliche lines we say that nobody revealed where one hostage was. That's true. The nurses, the doctors, they hate us. They're collaborating with by Hamas. They were put in their positions by Hamas. I'm there's
So there's
very few peace activists in Gaza.
so Joe. Let me just say that if we're gonna be stupid now and let this peace force nonsense happen and not annex Gaza, then if another October 7th happens, we can't make the same mistake again and say, but we're the light of the nation. No, no. If we're going to make the same dumb mistake and leave the Gazans to rule their own country, or let Turkey do it, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and maybe, I don't know, Kuwait or some, create this silly police force, and then we're surprised in 6 months that we're getting rockets shot into Ashkelon and Ashdod again and Sderot, then yeah, at that point, we're gonna have to be a little less nice if we want this to ever stop because they're gonna take more hostages and we're gonna exchange for more terrorists and then more 18-year-old soldiers are gonna die because we're the peaceful, we're the Ola Goyim, Joseph. We're
So
eventually
you
gonna have
annex you so I'm not for annexing Gaza because then you have all kinds of on the international stage legal
Mhm,
obligations to the population that there if you formally annex it. An annexation is different to a military occupation. So I
mhm.
think we should be occupying Gaza. I think we should be physically
Gaza's
in control
part
of
of
it.
it. It's the problem is it's religious. I think the Palestinians are waiting for us to actually acknowledge what they acknowledge. Like, because it's not about land. That's the problem. Is like we keep making it about land. If
No,
we're
it
not
is
willing
about
to,
land. It's about al-Ard al-Muqaddasa. It's this particular land is holy.
yeah, 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 but they care about the land for religious reasons much more
Yes.
so than just
Yeah.
land for land itself. And the problem is when you're not annexing, annex is the when you're not claiming sovereignty over Gaza, you're effectively telling the Muslims that you don't believe it belongs to you. And when you don't believe it belongs to you, then they believe in continuing the fight to take it from you. And so it's not just about splitting land for peace. It's if you're not going to claim sovereignty over it, then that clearly shows us you don't believe in what your Torah says and yada yada yada. And I think that symbolism emboldens them to keep fighting you for it. And
Well,
and
we gave
that's
up
the thing.
Sinai. We gave up Sinai, and I don't think this true
I
is
don't
the
think
same is
that
true if we
that
got
was.
Sinai.
I first of all, I think that's a little different because it has to do. Even actually, let me backtrack. I think that's temporary. I think that's a Hudaybiyah situation. I think that's also because America is funneling money into them and kind of keeping their mouths shut for now. But I don't think Egypt's really a true
I
partner.
I don't think it's the religion in the land that's keeping the conflict alive. I think it's Palestinian nationalism. It's the idea that there can be a Palestinian state here. If you take Judea and Samaria, you crush the idea of a Palestinian state. Gaza is not a Palestinian state. Gaza is a tiny
Mm.
enclave which would probably just go back to Egypt if because it wouldn't be able to sustain itself.
And we're still gonna fight. I don't believe. I don't know. I mean, I don't think giving back the Sinai was a good idea. I think it brought us a temporary level of peace, but I think it showed the Muslim
So,
world. I
so you
think it
take
was. I
Gaza,
think.
then what? Do you have freedom of movement for the population into Israel? Do
Well, I
they have
think it's going to take time.
residency?
I think it's
Do
going to
you
take
spend
time.
money building it? Do you pay for infrastructure? Do you put soldiers there at huge expense?
Mhm.
Like, what happens with Gaza?
No, I think it needs to have similar to an Emirates plan, kind of like how Mordechai Kedar explains it, where you
I
have a
think the
short.
Emirate plan works for Judea and Samaria. I don't think Gaza is a good model for that because the Gazan population absolutely they're insanely hostile. They're insanely hostile. I think people in
They're
Judea and
going to be
Samaria cross
hostile
into Israel
regardless.
every
They're going
day.
to be hostile regardless. I think to just I think it needs to be, first of all, the Judea and Samaria is better because there are Jewish settlements in it that are able to kind of quell the violence to a much larger degree. If we pulled all
I
the
don't think
Jews
it's
out of
this.
it,
It's not the Yishuvim, it's the IDF, it's Sahel.
but if we pulled all of the Israelis now out of the Judea and Samaria,
We
it would
pulled
become
Sahel,
another
yeah.
Gaza. It would
But
become
it's
another
because of
Gaza.
Sahel. It's because of Sahel, is what I'm saying. It's because of the army.
Yeah, but the
That's what
army's only
prevents
there.
it.
The army's
There
only
because
there
of the
because there are
civilians.
Jews.
I agree. I agree. I agree with you. There's no, I'm just saying it's not I don't know.
But it's both.
It's
But
not
it's
some
both.
outpost. It,
But both are
it's
true. But both are true. The army's there because of the civilians, and the civilians are there because the army protects them. But the truth is if Israel didn't kick out, like you can pull out Sahel right now, you would what would happen is the Israeli Jews living in Judea and Samaria would just become rogue animals and would just absolutely wipe out the villages. They're not going to leave. These Israeli Yishuvim, many of them, maybe some Americans who just moved 2 years ago wouldn't have the fight in them. They'd be too scared. But you would absolutely have very hardline
I
Zionim.
I I fundamentally like I spend time at outposts. I
Mhm.
know who the
Yeah.
they are able to do the things that they do and project the strength that they project purely because of Sahel. If Sahel weren't there, I believe um, many of them would be butchered by our neighbors. I feel you'd have full on civil war if if the Sahel pulled out, but it's not that we would just go in and take Ramallah. Like I think that's ludicrous. Like
If
the
they
Sahel
had if they
protects the
had the means,
Yishavim, not the other way around.
well, okay, but they don't because that's how it's set up. They don't have the means. If they had the means, they probably would. I'm saying I don't think 700,000 people would just leave. I don't think so. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so.
I
Yeah.
agree with you, but the reason that the Yishuv, the
Who would
people that
win
live in
is a
the
different
Yishuv,
question. It would still turn into a war. I'm not saying that the Arabs
yeah.
wouldn't. The Arabs might win. They might be more brutal. They might have more weapons.
But this is a pointless
Yeah.
conversation because Sahal's not pulling out. Sahel protects the. But what I'm trying to what I put my faith in the
Mhm,
military institutions. I have incredible pride for how we campaigned in Gaza. I
mhm,
think our military is one of the most moral militaries in the world, and it should be a source of pride for the Jewish people and not a source of shame, which many, unfortunately, Jews and Chutzla Arabs see it as a source of shame. They should not. They should familiarize
mhm.
themselves with how other militaries conduct themselves. Um, and so, yeah, my only thing is I don't think we should annex Gaza. I think annexing Gaza would be a really bad move. I think controlling Gaza, occupying Gaza until a new reality is able to be built there, a reality which isn't, as you described, just continuous conflict, which remains removing Hamas, which remains
Mhm.
taking over the education. Um, I think that's the past. But to bring 2 million Gazans into Israel and annex that, I think that's a really bad
But
idea.
you're not really bringing them in. You're making them residents. You help them with
Yeah, but it means
infrastructure. You help them with infrastructure for sure, but you create a dynamic. First of all, it's not like their own people create a better circumstance. They would live better with our help anyway. So I think that we just create a situation where it's like, I know you hate us. You probably will hate us for another decade or 2 decades. But we're not getting anywhere otherwise. Like, we have to try something different. We have to move forward. Let's, create true. You have one city, you find a tribal leader. That there is probably already a tribal leader of that city. The Israeli army and the Israeli government says, Mr. Habadia. Okay, let's just imagine his name is Habadia. Mr. Habadia, your family rules this town. It's ruled this town for 30 years. We're going to help you make sure that you continue to rule over this town. You need garbage removal. Great. You need better such and such. You need help with healthcare. You need help with infrastructure. We're obligated to do that. We want peace. We want to make this work with you. Is it going to be easy? Very, very possibly not. Will it take time for there to be trust between the two sides? Absolutely. Will there be hatred and vitriol and whatnot? Probably. But I mean, like anything else, like what we had it with Germany, all we could do is try. I just don't think that it's not that I want to annex it just to annex it. I'm not a conquistador. It's just that I think comes down to the religious component of, if we just keep giving it back to them, then the fight just continues. The fight might continue
I
with
just don't think the
annexation.
fight's for Gaza. I think the fight is for Jerusalem. The fight is for Quds
No, I know, but
and
when you
Judea and
don't claim
Samaria.
sovereignty over Gaza, you create the symbolic. You just you convince them. You continue to convince them that their fight is worthwhile. Meaning, they're not. If you're still giving them the window of opportunity for two states, they're going to take that opportunity. And the two states is not the goal. Taking over the whole thing is the goal. But as long as you're giving them that window to take more land, they're going to do it. When you remove that option altogether, you eventually create a catalyst for there to be a true lasting peace. That's what I think. That's what I believe. Yeah.
Well, we can agree to disagree. That's fine.
Sure. Yeah, yeah. Okay. No, listen, I thought, I actually was surprised that we would have these disagreements. I actually thought we would be like a little more aligned on it, but it's
I'm not
totally cool.
opposed to the Emirates model. I'm a big fan of Mordechai Kedar. My issue is just Gaza. It's not Judea and Samaria. I think the Emirates is a good model for here. My issue is Gaza. Gaza is a unique case in that the majority of the population are not indigenous to there. They're the descendants of people from Beersheba, etc., who fled in 48. It's not strategically important for Israel. I think the only argument that somebody could make for Gaza is a politically incorrect argument, which I don't even really want to say, is Gaza has gas. And so there's a commercial reason to incentive to keep Gaza. Now, I don't think that should be at the forefront of anyone's thinking, which is why I'm not for annexing Gaza. But if you annex Gaza, you eliminate any future conflicts, clashes over who has rights to the offshore gas fields that are off Israel and Gaza.
Hey, we could use some more natural resources. No. Listen, man, I mean, I want peace too, man. I do. Yeah, I just think the religious thing is the, but okay, listen, hopefully, regardless, I hope there's peace. I really do. I really do, man. Nothing I want more, truthfully. And I was
Yeah.
talking to Barack the other day, and I was saying that I want to, I'm not just doing this content for clicks and likes, where when the conflict, God willing, ends in our lifetime, I'm going to have nothing else to talk about and my channel will just become stale. I want to be able to talk about peace on my channel. Now, will it be as people, human beings naturally like to watch crime and violence and negativity. The news is always fueling negativity because people have this propensity to just like the gossip and the negativity and the, oh, you heard that crime and this thing. But I personally would love to talk about content where I'm interviewing people from different parts of Jerusalem, where we're doing vlogs about eating together, because that would be such a new idea. It's such a novelty of
Yeah.
there actually being peace between both sides. So I hope my channel could eventually shift and maybe in 10 years from now. I hope sooner than that, but that'd be
So
pretty
so
cool. Yeah.
so my objective is also peace, and I pivoted my content. The overwhelming majority of my content is actually focused at Muslims and not Jews,
Right.
because I don't think there's much point in preaching to the choir. I think there's a case to speak to left wing progressive Jews in America or ultra orthodox. I mean, there's huge work that needs to happen between the Haredim and wider Israeli society. But my mission is, that's a very Christian way of phrasing it. My mission is to reach the Muslims and convert them to Zionism. Because I think there's 2 billion Muslims, and the overwhelming majority of them, at the very least, would like to see Israel dismantled,
Right.
however that happens. And there's 7 million Jews that live here that don't want that. And so we have to find a way of convincing Muslims that we have a right to live here. And I think if you can create Muslim Zionism, I think it was in that Will said it at a talk I was once at, and it really resonated with me. If you spoke to our ancestors 500 years ago, I'm from Polish stock, and told them that the closest friends of the Jews in the year 2025 are going to be really fundamentally religious Christians, they would look at you like you were a lunatic, because Christians were putting us to the sword, burning us at the stake for the fact that we were Jews. And I think the same can be true with Zionism. There was a Christian awakening that began in Britain, but it gave birth to Christian Zionism. This was a
Mm.
Christian movement. It wasn't created by Jews. It was Christians reinterpreting their scripture and believing that Jews needed to move to the Holy Land for Jesus to come back. And that gave birth to Christian Zionism. It began around the 15 to 1600s. And the same is true for Islam. If you can help nurture a Zionist awakening within the Muslim world, that is the greatest path to peace, because the alternative is you take 2 billion Muslims out of their faith. And I think that's far more difficult than
No doubt.
convincing
No,
them that Israel isn't incompatible with their religion.
no doubt. I love what you do. I really enjoy having these discussions of peace with any Arabs or Muslims. I think though that there's so many of them, and as much as people like yourself, Sahar, Tal, Yinon Kahati of Jewish Dawa, I think there's so much benefit to doing it. With that said, not but with in addition to that, I think we also, as Jews, as Israelis, whether you're living in Israel or you're living outside of Israel, need to have very good clarity. We're never all going to agree. Jews, look, you and I, we're aligned probably on almost everything, but we see things
Yeah.
a little bit differently in how we get there and whatnot. But our desire to have peace and to have a safe Israel for Jews and non-Jews, we both agree on the fundamentals, I think. So I think the Jewish people need to have more clarity in what a strong Israel looks like and how we get there. And then I think it'll be that alone will bring the Muslim side to say, okay, the Jews understand why they're here and why they have their land. And along with the advocacy that's being done by people like, and I do it as well, but people in this space, I think both of those things are very important together, if that makes sense.
No,
Pardon me.
and I
It's
agree.
it's four a.m. by me, so I'm like, I think my
I wish
neurons
I
are
was as
like,
sharp as you at 4 a.m. So no, completely agree. And we can wrap it up because you need to go back to sleep. But
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I think projecting strength is the most the key component in creating peace. If we look weak, if we're vulnerable, we will encourage con, uh, continuous conflict. So I think the key is to project strength. I mean, I want our enemies to look at Gaza. I want the people in Ramallah, in Bethlehem, to look at Gaza and think we don't want that here. We've got a good life.
Mhm.
We're driving Range Rovers. We're driving BMWs. We've got a great life. We don't want, and they don't. This is
They have better
why
cars. They have better cars than Israelis do, man. Come on.
I've got a
Yeah, yeah.
video coming up tomorrow, which I'm shooting with Adin Aiken, who's good. People should follow him on Twitter. He's a good guy. They should also follow everyone you just mentioned, Jewish Dawa, Tal. Sahar, they're all great content creators. Barak, they're really good creators. But I'm making a video with Eden where we're literally we're going around filming the swimming pools, the mansions, the cars every day on a road near Jerusalem, that's shared by Palestinians and Israelis. I see a Palestinian Maybach with Palestinian plates worth $500,000. I'm driving a 10-year-old Peugeot, and this poor oppressed Palestinian's driving a
What do
$500,000
these
Maybach.
people do though? What the heck do they do to have that money? What are they doing? Are they, you think,
I think a lot of it is construction. All these empty buildings that you see that's paid for by European money is being built by Arabs. A lot of the construction workers in Israel, like you'll see a lot of the cars in somewhere like Beit Jala, you'll see have got Israeli plates. They're Arabs, with Israeli plates that are just driving in, and they've got that. They're in construction. Like like half of Jerusalem has been built by Arabs, and they're getting paid an Israeli salary for building that. I mean, the buildings they're building in Judea and Samaria, Ramallah, Bethlehem, is that they're at Rawabi. Just Google Rawabi, people. Just go and have a look at what
yeah,
Rawabi looks like.
Rawabi is beautiful. That's where I, toward the end of my service, I used to, we used to do our patrols. I used to see Rawabi, used to pass it all the time.
It's it,
Huge Palestinian flags flapping in the wind,
yeah.
big pillars. It has like this like Roman look to it. These big majestic beams and whatever,
And
but
you go there,
mostly
they've
empty,
got
mostly
shops,
empty.
but no people. The
Yep.
shops are like Hugo Boss. You can get yourself a nice Hugo Boss suit there. It's like
So you've been in there. You've been able to go.
yeah,
You've
I've
been
been in there
inside.
a few times. Yeah. It's a ghost town. And whenever you speak with the Palestinians who are doing the tour and introducing you to the area, they're always
It's
like,
too
"Yeah,
nice. By the way, it's too.
everyone's at work at the moment. It's office hours. Everyone, if you come here in like 5 hours time, the streets are gonna be filled." I've come back 5 hours later. The streets are just as quiet.
You know why? Because like it doesn't have flavor. We like it a little bit shitty looking. It's too nice. What is this West? They're like, I need some clothes
But
hanging from the. They need so they need a cat to poop on the front lawn. It's like this is too nice. I don't like this. I sound
I don't
Russian
know.
right
I
now.
look at some of the policy do. The palaces in Judea and Samaria that the Arabs have because they have quite ornate style. So it's like when a Jew gets money, you'll get more of a minimalistic. It's a nice. It's got a swimming pool. It's a nice property. But the Arabs, there's columns. It's ostentatious, and they're everywhere.
Arabs flaunt their wealth heavy. But the thing is that a lot of Jews do too. There are
I don't know.
definitely I
They
think
flaunt in different ways. They flaunt in different ways.
Middle Easterners are very flaunty. Now you have, of course, Europeans that are also. It's really hard to like. You can't. It's not a black and white thing. But you see, like Persians, Arabs, even like whether they're Jews or not, Persian Jew, whatever. They tend to be like gold. You walk into their houses and like the toilet seat's gold, and like the phone. You pick up the phone, it's like a golden phone, and they're sitting on their golden toilet with the golden phone. Like golden golden cell phone, golden pen. Their daughter's made out of gold. It's like she can't even speak. They're just wearing a gold helmet. Everything's gold. Anyway, yeah, man, it's crazy. Yeah. Okay. Is there is there anything else you wanted to anything else you wanted to add or
Usually I just talk about anti-Semitism in the West and Jews to leave, but yeah, ignore it. We just spoke about the war, which is old news already. If you're in the West, if you're in Europe in particular, leave. Like Jenny, I took my family out of there because I think the older generation will be okay unless something fundamentally changes in Europe because of just pure demographics and the hostility that Jews face from, unfortunately, the Muslim community. There's no future. And
do
when
you
you
think
look in
that's our
America,
answer? You think our answer
I think
isn't to
the answer is
fight? You think
absolute
it's like we just
no.
have to leave?
Why fight? Fight for what? You can
I guess
literally
the
be a free
argument,
for the first
yes,
time in 2,000 years. You can live in a Jewish state with complete liberty. Your children will think in Jewish. They'll think in Hebrew. They'll their calendar will be Jewish. Their friends will be Jewish. There's nothing wrong with non-Jews, but this is an incredible blessing. And so the non-Jews are making it increasingly clear that more and more of them do not want us in their nation. America's going crazy on the right. Europe's gone
Mhm.
crazy on the left, and from the Muslim community, they're telling you they don't want to live with you. And for the first time in 2000 years, you have somewhere to go where you're actually wanted, where you're not just a passive observer of Jewish history, but an active participant in it. You will shape the future of the Jewish people by moving here. Even if you're just sweeping a road or doing gardening, you're literally changing the course of Jewish history by being here. So if your neighbors are telling you that they don't want to live with you, and your family's telling you to come home, we will protect you and you can help shape our future. For me, it was a no-brainer. I took my family and we moved here. And I'm not going to pretend it's been easy. We started in Jerusalem. It was very difficult. We moved somewhere else more recently, and things have got a lot easier. But the quality of life we have here is incomparable. It's the little things. I got an
Yeah.
AliExpress Temu delivery the other day. It was delivered to a shop. I had to go and collect it. So I got my ID out. I got the code that I'd need to use, because that's what you do in the West. There'll be a locker, you
Mhm.
punch a code in, or you show someone your idea. Here, there's a shelf with hundreds of parcels in. You just go in and you take the parcel that has your name on it, and no
Yep.
one
Yep.
steals the other parcels. It's a high trust society. It's a high trust society. Like, why live in a declining society with low trust, where the people don't want you there, where it's increasingly dangerous to be visibly
London is a
Jewish?
different story. Yeah, no, London is England, Manchester, totally different. I was just there when I interviewed Tommy Robinson, and you can just see things are there. Everyone is trying to kind of hold it together, but you feel the rope is just slowly like it's about to just burst, but it's
It's
you know.
balkanizing in front of our eyes as well. Emerging political party. Is it like the UK has been dominated by two political parties for 100 years now, Labour and the Conservatives. For the first time, they're under threat from fringe parties, reform, the Greens, but it's not
Oh,
eco populism.
that green
It's
guy with
it's
his
yeah,
teeth.
it
Oh,
Polanski. It's not eco
a shame.
populism. It's eco Islamism. The Muslim bloc is voting for the Greens in opposition to the establishment parties, Conservative and Labour, and so you had similar things where when new radical political parties threaten the status quo, disrupt the status quo, that never ends well for the Jews. So if you're a Jew living in the UK, leave. I also think if you're a Jew living in America, the writings on the wall, look at what's happening. The biggest influences in America now have got to their place of influence through anti-Semitism and
I know, but I
anti-Zionism.
gotta close some deals first because Mamdani's gonna bring all these Jews from New York. Rafi, can we get that house in Miami Beach now? $10 million. Let me just
Sorry,
make a few
I did
shekels, and then I'll let me
just
make a few
realized
shekels.
I'm
Sell
not good.
some man.
I'm not good for business. Okay, everybody, you've got two options. Rafi will get you a nice place in America where it's safe, or come to Israel. They're the two options.
No, no, no. Go to
But
listen. No, 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 no. I'm never gonna try to push people not to go to Israel. 100%. If they don't want to go right now,
I know a realtor who
well,
can get you a really
yeah,
good beachfront
well,
property.
or if you have the money, just buy a house in Israel and a house in South Florida, and then you're golden. You can just live in both, or just at least have your Israel house when you're ready to leave. Um, but Florida is pretty awesome right now, I'll say. Right now, for the time being. Okay, well, by the way, Joseph, there's so many things that I would like to cover. Hopefully, we'll do a round two. Really, really enjoyed it. You're such an intelligent guy. Really, so
It's
happy that we spoke.
completely mutual. The feeling is
Thank
mutual.
you, thank
It's
you,
I,
thank
I
you.
rarely get into good debates with the podcasting hosts. It's usually just questions, and I enjoy good debates. I learn from them, so I appreciate you sharing
I'm
your
not. By
thoughts
the way,
with me.
I'm not the I'm not the kind of podcast host that just asks questions and goes, uh-huh, uh-huh. Like I'm not like that, dude. I don't operate that
You're
way.
not my therapist. So how did that make you feel?
I think that's so lame, man. I think those podcasts are they're lame. I want to have a conversation. I imagine the microphone's not here, camera's off, and we're just talking. That's how I like it to be. That's how it should be. Uh, Anyhow, Joseph, thank you again. Really such a pleasure. Totally worth getting up in middle of the night for it. No, listen,
All
got to
right.
make it
Well,
happen. Got to make it
I'm
happen.
gonna
Yeah.
wish you Laila Tov and hope you get a few hours sleep before you start
Yeah, yeah,
work. And I
yeah.
really do appreciate you getting up in the middle of the night for me. There's not many people that wake up at 2 a.m. just to have a chat with me. At least not outside of the authorities.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that.
I love what I do. I love what I do, and I believe it's very important to talk about what I'm talking about. And I don't. I am. There was no question in my mind. If that's what'll make it happen, then that's what we do. So let me just quickly close this out, and we'll be on our way. Guys, thank you again for watching another episode of the Soothing Semantics podcast. Make sure, of course, to subscribe, smash the like button, leave your comments. Go follow Joseph Cohen at Israel Advocacy Movement. You can find him on all social media platforms. He's very prominent on Instagram and YouTube, so make sure to go give him a subscribe and support his page. If you're on the opposite side where you don't support Israel, you don't support the Jews, go listen to him anyway. Highly educated. I'm sure you can learn a thing or two. Um, any closing thoughts? Is there anything you wanted to mention, throw in, anything of this?
Just thank you for hosting me. Thank you for hosting me and go to bed.
Okay. All right. All right, guys. Peace. Hold on 1 second here.